With money, it will not work out unless you're intentional about making it work out.
One of the biggest questions in relationships is, does love and money make a good mix? Now, we preach this all the time, that love and money do make a great team. But actually, some people have challenged us on this and said, really, is that really the case? How does that work? What does that look like? So today, we're actually going to take a different approach. We're going to just have a conversation around our thoughts on love and money. Do they mix, and where we stand on that? Hopefully our discussion today will give you some insights into our thinking, but also maybe even inspire you to look at your relationship in a different lens.
So what are your thoughts on that actual question? Do love and money mix, or do they not mix?
So I think for me it depends. There's no
Right.
simple answer to this. So the first thing I'd say is that love and money will mix whether you like it or not. I think that's inevitable. If you're in a relationship, there will come a point in time where, money will be like, okay, this is a big thing. We need to, talk about it. We need to look at it, whatever the case is. And I think you can't ignore it. So whether you do it intentionally or you choose to ignore it and it slaps you in the face at some point down the line, I think it will mix at some point.
Yeah.
The way in which you mix it is then what's key.
Yeah.
But how they mix and what they look like is where it looks different for every relationship. What about you? What are your thoughts?
I'll take this question a different way, as in, do love and money work together?
Okay.
And I actually think they can work, but you have to be intentional about it. So it's one thing to just go into the relationship and just think, well, we love each other, things will just work out. Like, come on, let's be real. People that are in relationships already know that for your relationship to work, you need to put like so much effort into it. You don't just go into it and sit down and think, yeah, it's just going to work itself out. No, you need to put the work in. And it's the same with the money relationship. Sometimes I think couples don't realize that. They just think because we love each other, things will just work out. With money, it will not work out unless you're intentional about making it work out. You're intentional about having those conversations. Be intentional about having those money date nights. Be intentional about putting together a budget and working together. Be intentional about having those very hard money conversations, because they're necessary for you to have a money relationship that works. You need to have those money conversations that may sometimes be difficult, but it goes back to being intentional. Let me take you back to your answer that you gave, because you said it's inevitable that it will mix and you just need to be mindful about how you sort of like work through it when it does mix. What are some of the things that you would say couples need to be aware of when it then does mix? Like, what are some of the things that they will need to work on?
For me, the first thing is you just need to be aware that both of you are two different people in terms of your money relationship. So it's very common that the person you married is different to you when it comes to how they interact with money. So you kind of hear this saying a lot, one is a spender, one is a saver. It paints the picture. Obviously, those two categories aren't the only categories that exist in terms of your relationship with money, but I think that's kind of the common find that you find in couples, that that those are the differences. So that's the first thing I'd say, is just be mindful of the fact that you do have different personalities with money. The second thing I'd say to be mindful of is that, equally then speaking, your money habits are different in terms of how you approach your financial problems, or how you solve financial problems, how you make financial decisions. All of these things are different because you're two different people. And the third thing I'll say to be mindful of is that if you don't intentionally do it, as you were talking about, I'll be honest with you, it hit you like a ton of bricks, and it'll be something that will just slap you in the face, maybe even knock you off course, and become a big problem to solve. If you start with kind of like the baby steps, start with the small steps off, let's talk about money, let's talk about our money goals, let's put together a budget, let's do these things now. Because the time will come where you need to make a big financial decision, and until you're both on the same page, that decision just won't be made, or it may be made, but like it's not really something that you both want together. So that's the struggle that you face there. Now, there are some people who are going to believe that money is kind of a stumbling block in relationships. It's something that just, the minute you introduce money, things become messy, they get complicated, X, Y, Z. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't necessarily disagree with that statement. I think that depending on how you introduce money into the relationship, it can either be a stumbling block or it can actually be a step in the right direction. The reason I say that is because if you introduce money in the relationship and you've not really spoken about it or don't really have a plan as to how you're going to work with money in the relationship, and it's just like there, not having the right steps to deal with the money and not having the right foundation to sort of build on that will cause a stumbling block. And this is why I then say, but if you actually have the right steps or you've got the right foundation, it becomes a lot easier for you to build on that. And the right foundation for some could be having a budget together, like having those money discussions to sort of decide like, okay, what are we doing with our money? How are we managing with our money? You need to set yourselves the right foundation. You need to set yourselves on the right sort of like level playing ground when it comes to managing money as a couple and making your love and your money work together for you and making it be a success. So what about people that have been in past relationships? They left with a lot of hurt and some of it was to do with money, maybe broken trust or partner spending all their money, partner gambling their money, partner even hiding money from them. And they're literally going into a new relationship now like, you know what? Love and money don't mix. It didn't mix in the old relationship. Why would I think it would mix in this relationship?
It's a good question, and you will have good reasons why you would think those questions. I think those lessons learned just give you a standing ground to then actually go back to what we were talking about being intentional.
Yeah.
Because when you look back to what you went through, you kind of say, well, I don't want to go through that again. So I'm going to be very, very, very intentional about how we approach money in our relationship and this new relationship that you're in. And by being very intentional, you then set boundaries that you feel are comfortable for yourself,
Right.
that you can agree to, and maybe even both of you agree to. But I would certainly not be afraid to have that conversation. By that, I mean, don't think of it as, well, my money is my money, your money is your money, and we'll just never talk about money. There will come a point where, you need to discuss your shared living costs, or there'll come a point where you need to discuss how you're going to host people for Christmas. Something will come up that you do need to talk about money. And or if you're saving up for your anniversary to go away, for example, and all these things. Certainly, you will need to have a money conversation at some point, but I wouldn't think of the past hurt as a hindrance. I'd actually think of it as like, turn it around to be something good that you can then use to guide how you approach manage money with your new partner.
I also think that, like you said, it's a great lesson, but it also allows you to put the right boundaries in place. And that word boundaries is so key when it comes to managing money, especially if you've got money trust issues.
Yeah.
It will help you put the right boundaries in place. But it also goes back to communication. When you're now in this new relationship, make sure you tell your partner, like, these are the things I went through in the old one. Let me just communicate this to you so you know. Because the last thing you want is your partner now questioning, like, but why do they behave like that when it comes to money? And if they're clueless, it may cause them to act in a way that you feel like, well, they're just being insensitive. They just don't get it. But it's because you also didn't relay what happened before that's causing you to be the way that you are now. So also let them know that, okay, now that I've told you this, I would like to put these boundaries in place. This is also for my healing. This is also for me to get over what happened in the past, whilst also making sure that our relationship and our money relationship is a success.
What we're talking about today just kind of goes to show that money is not so simple, particularly when it comes to money in relationships. And by simple, I mean, it's not just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's an emotional subject. There is a lot of emotions connected to this, and when you got two people with two different emotions coming in together in the same room, it can gel for others very easily, but for others you need to be very, very intentional about being like, okay, we need to work through the friction of working together as a team when it comes to money. Now, we do have a free couples budgeting guide that you can download that will give you that good start of these are the different ways that you can approach managing money in your relationship. We've put the link in the description for you to check it out. Download it today. It's completely free, but what it will do is give you the foundational starting point of how you and your partner can approach this whole thing called money together as a team. With that said, how have we made it work for ourselves?
To be fair, there's quite a number of things that we've done, but I think the one that really does stand out for me is the fact that we've learnt to work together as a team. Initially, we're not really having the right money conversations, but when we realized what was happening and the fact that this was causing a stumbling block in our financial relationship, but also our personal relationship, we then decided like, no, let's be intentional about fixing this. Because if we can fix this, we can build the right foundation for our relationship, and not just like our money one, but also the bigger relationship, the bigger picture as well. It wasn't easy. And it's definitely not easy when you're two different people with two different habits, but you put the work in. The same way you want your actual relationship to be a success is also the same sort of effort and the same sort of way you should also want your money relationship to be a success.
So let us know in the comments. Do you love a money mix? How does it work in your relationship? Would love to hear from you. We'll catch you in the comments and we'll see you on the next one.